What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? Alright, let's get into it. I was watching an interview with Doggie Diamonds. Shout out to Doggie Diamonds, man. This guy's really putting it on, man. He's doing some great interviews. So this was something with DJ Evil Dee, who I have actually met. I've met Evil Dee twice. I mean, it's not like on some, I know the dude at all. I don't know him. But I'm saying I've literally met the guy in person in terms of like, hey, how you doing, brother? Give a pound and kept it moving type of thing. And Evil Dee's a cool cat. Every time I've met him. He's been to Toronto before. I think I even met him first in Toronto and then like twice in Brooklyn or something like that. So, he's a big dude too. So basically, I like his whole energy because he's just not afraid to be around people or anything like that. Just a good dude overall. So anyway, DJ Evil Dee of the Beatminerz has an interview with Doggie Diamonds, and it's a great interview. Now, in this interview, they're talking about whether or not boom bap is dead. They have like a sort of section where they're basically going through reminiscing on sort of older producers and things that they did that wowed him and shit like that. And I love those kind of conversations. It's why I always say that beats, man, to me, are the real heart and soul of this rap shit. That's the real intelligence. That's the real intellect. That's the like sitting out and figuring out how to fucking make a beat and read the manuals and all that shit that comes with producing. It's real hard work, man. You really have to figure the shit out, the technical aspects of all this stuff, right? That most people are afraid of. Anyway, so as they're going through and recounting all the great producers, they're talking about like, what do they talk about? Like, obviously it mentioned Primo and what makes Primo special, what makes Madlib special, all this shit. As a side note, I'm all over the place right now, but as a side note, remember when I did a top 50 MCs list? I tried to do one with the producers, man, and honestly, it's really fucking hard. And to me, again, one, if you know your producers, that's when, to me, you start to really know your rap shit. But B, it is really fucking hard to come up with the best top 50 producers of all time because there's so many fucking dope producers in hip-hop, but there's also a lot that, didn't do shit, right? But there's a lot of really dope people that people don't talk about. They don't talk about Easy LP or like, for example, Mr. Wool or Evil Dee and shit like that, who have made classics, right? So, yeah, Primo, I can put DJ Premier and say, okay, DJ Premier is number one to me, right? Or I can put Timbaland. But then after that, it's like kind of a fucking free-for-all. I mean, obviously, RZA. Like, the top 5 to me is a little clear for me. But after like the 5th, it's like very, very difficult because there's a lot of people that have really put their foot into this rap shit, man. So anyway, that's an aside. The real issue here is Evil Dee was talking about, boom bap can never die, which I do agree with, but he was also like, oh, boom bap's great, it's in a great place, or we have our own projects and blah blah, and people are still listening, and I would disagree. I totally disagree. I think this boom bap shit is pretty much fucking dead, and it's sad for me to say this shit because I grew up on boom bap, and I sometimes when I hear these guys talk and defend the new shit that comes out in the boom bap world, the underground shit, I'm almost like, are you guys just sort of saying this shit because you're part of it and you just want to believe it, or are you even like listening to other like subgenres of this rap shit? Are you paying attention to what's going on? Because in my opinion, nobody's really listening to this shit. Yes, there is an underground following who will always listen to boom bap. I get it. But in the grand scheme of things, the fucking boom bap sound is stale. It's stale because it hasn't really evolved, in my honest opinion, right? For a bunch of reasons. I think that obviously, when I talk about DJ Premier, to me, who's the greatest boom bap producer to ever do it, in my humble opinion, I grew up on Primo. I fucking love Primo's shit. Primo's the first cat that made me look at liner notes. Like, I remember the first Primo beat I ever heard was The Militia, right? And I went, what the fuck is this? This was back in 98. And I was like, holy fuck, who made this beat? I have to know who made this beat. And from then on, anything Primo, I got my hands on and I listened to that shit. You know what I mean? So the thing is, Primo has been putting it down for decades. When we talk about Primo, Pierre Bourne and shit, who's doing it right now, Pierre Bourne has some whack beats. He actually has quite a lot of whack beats. He also has a lot of amazing beats. But his hit ratio is like, let's say 60% or some shit. And he's only been out for like a couple of years, okay? Primo has been out since the mid to late 80s. And I would argue up until 2011 was making, I would say like a 96, 97% hit rate, which is unreal. That means like literally every Primo beat you heard for a span of like 2 decades was fire. Every one of them shits. And that's hundreds and hundreds of beats. So Primo's on a whole nother level. But to me, everybody is still trying to do Primo, but they're doing Primo and a weaker version of Primo. And Primo himself, like, I mean, he can't hold the fucking rap game up for that long, man. Like, you know what I mean? He's put in his effort. He's been running this shit for like 2 decades straight. You know what I mean? More than 2 decades straight. Like, there's only so much one man can do. You know what I mean? When I hear these new cats that people talk about, like Apollo Brown and Bronze Nazareth and whoever, right? That make these underground sleepy bullshit ass beats to me. I'm just like, are y'all niggas not listening to the same shit? Because the stuff I listen to, I love the Primo stuff. I grew up on all that stuff, the Beatminerz and Easy LPs and all that boom bap shit. But the stuff that boom bap people are making, especially of the last like 10 to 15 years, has been real sleepy. And that drumless shit that came into the, you know, hip hop game is one of the worst things to ever happen in hip hop, because that shit made it extra sleepy. And people ain't got time for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, most hip hop listeners, they want to know what the new shit is. They want to feel the new energy, because hip hop is about new energy, right? When Larry Smith came out, you know, with the Houdini shit and the Run DMC shit, that was its own new energy. And then Marley Marl came into the picture and brought a new energy. Hip hop is supposed to change. Like, you can't say that this is the sound that, and it's got to be this sound, and it's got to stay this sound. That's the definition of whack to me. Like, it's got to evolve. It always has evolved, right? Even what Primo did, which was really an evolved version of Marley Marl. It's a very Marley Marl type style beat. Like, if you want to know where Primo really got a sauce from, obviously he always says this, it's like James Brown and Marley Marl. And it's true. You listen to Marley Marl from back in the day, scratch choruses, boom bap, right? DJ Premier took that, but he made it dope, and he took it to another level, right? Who is the new Primo? I don't know who the new Primo is. I really don't. You know what I mean? Like, I've heard a couple of beats from some new guys that are dope. Thelonious Martin has like a couple of bangers. V Dawn has a couple of bangers. Clams Casino, obviously. He's boom bap. He evolved. He did some new shit, right? Clams Casino had his run. You know what I mean? Knowledge, 1 or 2. But overall, I'm not really hearing that boom bap producer, someone that's on the level of, let's say, a Metro Boomin, that's just knocking these shits out all this time, or like a Pierre Bourne that's just knocking these shits out. You know what I'm saying? I'm hearing a lot of weak shit. To me, the drums aren't there. The grit isn't there, right? I don't know what it is, but this boom bap shit is getting real sleepy. And I'm not fucking with it, man. Then people can say, oh, you don't know hip-hop, all that stuff. I grew up on this shit. Stop it. Like, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people are just kidding themselves. They got the fucking head, you know, ostrich head in the sand type shit. You know what I mean? Because a lot of this stuff is not that hot, man. That's just my honest opinion. I don't know. I am not hearing it when these guys are always talking about, oh, in Griselda giving it back. It's like, that's sleepy shit, man. You know what I mean? You need some new shit. Every genre, even subgenres, they gotta evolve. Nobody has evolved past Primo. They haven't. Whereas when I look at trap, which to me is the most dominant and innovative subgenre of hip hop right now, they're taking from, let's say, Timbaland and DJ Paul and Juicy J, right? They've evolved that shit, right? You listen to fucking Metro, that's an evolved version of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Space Ghost Perp, they took it and evolved it, right? Pierre Bourne, like, that's the thing. It's not like those guys, Timbaland and, you know, 3 6 Mafia weren't dope. They're amazing. But again, the innovation is there. You can see it. You can listen to the stuff from the 2000s and the 90s of what 3 6 Mafia were doing, and then you can see what it is now. And you can see that producers, smart guys have come along and said, hey, like, what if I tried this? What if I tried that, right? I'm not seeing that in boom bap. I'm just not. You know, like, all I'm seeing is DJ Premier just, you know, fucking carrying this entire shit on his fucking back for decades, going on and on and on. And then around like 2012-ish is, you know, he changes his drums or something happens. I don't know if it has to do with sampling laws or whatever. And shit just becomes flat and boring now. So, you know, one thing to consider, and I'll leave on this note, is that when some shit is new, that's when it has its most vitality and its most impression on the audience, right? So you can't expect people to have the same love for boom bap music that they did 20 years ago, because it is passé now. It wasn't necessarily passé back then, of course. It was still new and fresh, and still, like, most people weren't doing it. It wasn't something you heard. You know, I remember in the 2000s when you started to see all these sort of, you know, DJ Premier imitations, especially from Europe and shit. And, you know, there's a whole underground scene out there in London and wherever, Scandinavia, and they were all doing Primo imitations. And then Primo started selling beats to them and shit like that. You know, that's kind of when, like, to me, this boom bap shit really, really started to spread everywhere, right? Like, when you listen to guys, whoever they are in the world, and they're doing some boom bap shit, they're probably imitating Primo, which is pretty nuts. That's how fucking influential DJ Premier is to this rap shit, right? Like, his sound, you might not realize the shit, but DJ Premier is easily one of the most copied hip-hop producers of all time, right? But my point is that sort of vitality, that raw, that, like, that shock of how dope some shit is not there anymore. It's going to wane because we've experienced that sound a lot. And if there isn't any fresh blood or ideas or something new into it ingested, it's just going to become stale. Every style, no matter how dope, will eventually become passé if there is no new energy and nothing new, like actually really new and dope, put into it, right? And I think this is something that boom bap purists often forget, right? Like I've said before, hip hop evolved. It's some energy shit. I've moved on to the trap shit personally because while most trap is garbage, there are some innovative and some really dope trap shit, right? I want to go where the fucking innovation is, man. And I think that boom bap is time. They're like, it can definitely come back. Boom bap is amazing. Boom bap is especially amazing because it's the most, like, intellectual, in my opinion, of the subgenres. In the sense that because of somehow the way that the drums align and shit, like, you can, you know, when you give it to a rap artist really has a lot of space and pocket to really spit some hot shit, right? Some, like, next level shit. They don't have to just ride the beat, quote unquote. They can, like, kind of really talk to you and spit some hot shit, right? That's, to me, the amazing part about boom bap. The other genres, like, not that you can't say it's some dope shit in the other genres, of course, and subgenres, I mean, but there's something to be said about why boom bap is the most enduring. I mean, look at Nas, Jay-Z, Biggie, Prodigy, Ghostface, you know, all the greatest rappers, Big Daddy Kane, all these guys that said some next level shit, they were all rapping on boom bap beats because there's something about the structure of a boom bap beat that allows you to just, you know what I mean? So, yeah, but the problem is there are no real MCs anymore in the young generation that really want to spit that shit and really want to talk that shit. So, of course, boom bap started to fucking wane too. That was another problem. I noticed that in the 2000s because Primo had all these hot ass beats and he was still making fire, but it was almost like nobody really wanted to rock on them. The older artists were too busy chasing the new trends and the new sounds. Nas was, like, not working with Primo, which made no fucking sense to me. And the younger guys coming up couldn't obviously keep up with the AZs and the Nas's of the world. They just couldn't. Like, you could hear it. They would basically get on a Primo beat for clout, but they wouldn't even kill it. Like, you know what I mean? So eventually, Primo's stuff started to sound sort of like, you know, like he was doing so much of the heavy lifting, right? Anyway, the point is, look, can boom bap come back? Of course it can, right? Of course it can, right? I think Clams Casino is the best boom bap producer of the last decade because he did some new shit to me. Like, when I heard his shit, like, when you listen to bass and, you know, real shit for a real nigga and all that stuff is boom bap. Like, that's boom bap. Don't get it twisted. It's just weird. It's like, but that's what I'm saying. Like, he did something different. You know what I mean? That shit is straight boom bap. You know, the swing of it, because it's about the swing, right? But there's not enough new energy in this rap shit in terms of the boom bap sound. I'm just not hearing it. And I'm hearing a lot of soft, weak, low energy shit. And that was never boom bap. Boom bap to me was always high energy, always like, you know, to the gut, like just like you felt it, you know? So, look, this might be controversial to people, but to me, this, you know, boom bap shit is pretty much fucking dead. For now, someone I'm sure can come along and really make some dope boom bap shit. But I would say, look, man, you gotta study fucking Primo, you know, Marley. You gotta really study the greats, and then say, okay, look, listen, in this era, what did they do that is not being applied in this era, and what's the opportunity? To me, for example, I think that obviously we live in a generation where things are slower, right, to a certain extent. I mean, that's just kind of how music is. And I do think actually what's funny about rap is that rap, to a certain degree, has always moved slower, right? Like when you look at the difference between the 90s and the 80s, it was slower. Like the music slowed down in the 90s, right? I mean, Kane talks about this. Others have talked about it. The BPM, like you know, the MCs started to sort of slow their shit down, and that to me was iller, right? Because it kind of made shit more meaningful, and they were more in pocket, and it just was more sort of like spiritual and hallucinatory, if that makes sense, and dope. And so now things have got even slower. But the thing is, it can't get too slow. Even Clams Casino, his shit is slow, like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, right? But it still has to have that vitality to it, man. It's got to have that knock. Like, if it doesn't have that knock and that swing, it's not gonna work, you know. And so I don't know if like maybe what people need to do is that Primo shit, but slow it down more. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but I will tell you that the Prayah beat, Man Ting, you know, which was kind of like I think a flip of an old Trackmasters type of beat. I like that beat. That was like one of the better boom bap beats I've heard in a minute. You know, the Ghostface I Ain't Even Done, the Knowledge did. Another one of those better boom bap beats I've heard. So it can work. It's just getting the right swing, getting the right sample. Maybe sampling laws have killed boom bap as well. I can totally understand that because, hey man, you know, if you can't sample, you can't really make rap music, you know? So, and maybe people are you know, suing for drums and shit like that, and I don't know, like, and all those boom bap drums were lifted from Impeach the President and Synthetic Substitution and all that shit. So maybe again that's why this shit is kind of falling off compared to trap. You producers who know your shit, please tell me, because I don't understand it. I'm sitting there going like, do these guys not know that this isn't sound as heavy and as like ugh, as the older shit does? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can play Against the Grain, Sauce Money, and I love that fucking song, right? I can play that right now and then play like a Griselda song, and it's like the energy is completely different. You know what I mean? It's like not even close. Anyway, I've talked enough. I hope y'all are good. Later.